they just repeated back that I had really helped them, and I didn't feel like I had lost everything. And I realized that my identity didn't lie in being, I feel like I'm going to cry saying this, being a nurse. I didn't lose everything. And, yeah. And my identity wasn't in an illness, and that, I have a purpose, and, everything I went through is to help others. And I could use my story to begin to help others.
Welcome to the Brave Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Lynn, founder of Sistership Circle and author of Open Your Heart and The Art of Leading Circle. I'm the mother of 2 girls, an 8 on the Enneagram, aka the Challenger, happily married to my business partner, Brent, love connecting with nature, and have put in well over 10,000 hours circling with other women. On this podcast, we will explore how to embody the brave woman so that you can take action on your dreams and desires, unapologetically speak your truth, and live life on your own terms. Grab a seat and a cup of tea, and let's get started. We are doing something very cool and unique today, and that is I have this amazing woman, Christie, who is a certified Sistership Circle facilitator, quantum healer. She is amazing. And what we're going to be doing today is walking her through how to be a podcast guest and the best ways for her to prepare for a podcast. And I thought that this would be such a powerful podcast for all of you who are wanting to become more visible. You're wanting to get out there onto more podcasts. And how do you get ready for this? Like, how do you prepare and really shine in your light? So thank you, Christie, for being here and being part of this very cool new thing that we're doing here. I'm really, really excited for us to walk through this with you. And I just want you to, I shared a little bit about you, but share a little bit about what you're wanting to get from this and how this would serve your business of getting more podcasts.
For me, just getting information about what I can provide to my client, and getting the information also out there about the importance of like women just dealing with like chronic illness in itself, which is what I serve, and the importance of this area, and the importance of what these women go through, and how important having a circle is, and this need and this desire, and how this can best serve them, and this importance, and getting a voice out there for them so they can feel seen and heard. And that's just so important.
Great. So what I'm really hearing is that and this is a really important piece for us to get clear on, is who are you speaking to? And who Christie's speaking to is women with chronic illness, and that she's here to not only provide healing to help people on their journey who have chronic illness, but also to be a voice for them. I love that. So you get to speak for all of these women, and then reach all the women who are needing your medicine, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's just so important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so where we want to start is your story. Because when we are doing podcast interviews, what's going to connect with the audience is storytelling. And so the more masterful you become at sharing stories, and specifically your heroine's journey, the story of your transformation, the more that people are going to really be able to connect with you and your medicine. And because you have walked the path of your clients, this is what's really going to create that magnetism, is them feeling like they can see themselves in your shoes and that they can see what's possible because of what you have created in your own life, right? So we want to take them all the way through that journey with your story.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we're going to start with some of the points. If we can create an arc to the story, and where we want to start is, what was the defining moment of transformation for you? And then we want to go back, like the before and then the after. And that's what's going to create a really powerful arc for your story, and you sharing on podcasts who you are, where you've been, and where you're going, right? So can you remember, like, if we can pinpoint a defining moment of transformation for you, what would be that main point in the journey?
The defining moment, I'd say when it really hit for me, would be when I was in the Shamanic Academy. I'd say when it all just accumulated, and I think it came together. And when I began working with the other students and realizing the power and the gifts and what I can do to help.
Okay.
And that I had the control.
Great. So now, can we get really specific and drilling down into that moment? Is there a specific moment that you remember? Maybe it was on a call, maybe it was during a weekend.
It was after our study group, and I just could feel like energy coming out from me, and I had really helped one of my friends, and they just repeated back that I had really helped them, and I didn't feel like I had lost everything, and I realized that my identity didn't lie in being, I feel like I'm gonna cry saying this, being a nurse. I didn't lose everything. And yeah, and my identity wasn't in an illness, and that I have a purpose, and everything that I went through is to help others, and I could use my story to begin to help others.
Great. Wow. Okay. I'm taking notes here so we can have this written down. Just the fact, Christie, that you are feeling the emotions with this tells us that this was that defining moment. And when you can tap into that emotion, that's what's going to touch, move, and inspire and pull people into your story. You feel that? So powerful. So in the study group, you were helping a friend in the study group. Is that what was going on? Or these are, give me a little bit more context here. Okay. So you were in the study group.
The context there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that, and you know what? I will tell you this, there was probably an even better moment where I felt even before that, and it was actually with my kids. And this is probably an even more defining. It was my kids. This is the more defining, I would say, because I realized being a workaholic that my kids needed me. And I would have all these kids who were come over to the house that were my kids' friends, and they would begin calling me mom and giving me hugs. And my kids would be like, why are they calling you mom? And it would bug them. But I realized at that point, these kids didn't have much love or attention from their parents at home, and they needed that time, and they would talk and just talk to me and talk about their problems. And it also, my kids need me. And I realized at that time how different each child was. I got to know my kids so much better. Because being a workaholic, I was gone all the time. I'd be on different flights and work trips, and but I was home more. So I realized my identity was mom too, and even to other kids who would just come tell me mom, and even tattle on my kids and tell me secrets and be like, don't tell your, son so. But, this is happening. So I'd always know what was going on with each of my kids because their friends would tell me. So it was, it was pretty cool. But yeah.
Knowing your story, you have a great relationship with your kids now.
Yeah.
So what this might have been the shift? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so
it was just,
I
realized my kids needed me and I was there, and I got to be there for other kids who their parents weren't there. And some kids were going through some harsh things, and they confided in me about some things that their parents were going through, and they were having hard times at home. And I didn't judge their parents. I knew we all go through hard times. So I would be a listening ear. And I would do the girls' hair for, their dance and stuff like that. I almost wanted to cry because I know their mom would be there. And here I am with my daughter. And my heart hurt sometimes. And I did feel bad that here I am with my daughter. I kind of felt guilty a little, but I was glad I was there, and I would take the pictures with all of them, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling that. And just, you're so, as an energy worker, you're so sensitive. And so you can feel all of this.
Oh, it's that empath thing. You just feel it.
Yeah. Like your awareness of, and compassion and your empathy, and you're able to just really feel people. And, so I'm just really honoring that within you. And this is a big part of the story. So we're teasing out these themes, these stories right now. And this is all part of the journey of who you were and who you're becoming. So I think we also want to add in a story, and this is helpful that I know the story, so I get to kind of draw these things out of you. But the other part of the story is when you, I don't know if collapse is the word, but starting to get sick and pushing through that as a nurse and ignoring the body, ignoring the signs. Was there a specific memory around that we can weave in here? And can you share that?
Yeah. When I was a nurse manager, just working, I remember being with a patient. Her and I was really close. I could talk to her and just try to tell her everything. We would talk a lot. And she was one that I would go to like on my way home, and or even on the way to work, because they would be like, hey, just can you bring her medicine? And her and I would talk. And I remember she had a brother that was a doctor, and we just would spend time talking. But I remember being in our house one time and just feeling like I was going to black out and not feeling so good. And she's like, hey, do you need to sit down or you not? And that was a defining moment of okay, this people are starting to notice. It's probably not that good. And I remember, driving and just been praying that I would make it to each stoplight. And if I would be on the way home too, that if talking to my husband, I couldn't talk because it was to the point where I felt like I was, going to just go out. And so that was the times that it was getting bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the story here. You didn't want to acknowledge it because that meant what? That you might have to stop working.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't want to be a quitter. I didn't want to give up, look weak.
I didn't want to look weak, look like a quitter. So that's that big piece, because people are really going to identify with that, right? I think also people with chronic illness is like that pushing through, right? Like, let's push through this. Let's kind of ignore it. Because otherwise I might look weak. Something might be wrong with me. We don't want to admit that. And then there was the moment when, who was it? Your husband said, or no, yeah, he said, they're going to take your license from you. Right. So that's the other important piece of the story.
Yeah. Well,
so show that part.
Yeah. He didn't want me to lose it. I guess what if something happens? You don't want to lose your license because you worked hard for it. And he gave me the talk because I had to reapply for your management positions. We all had to reapply. And he goes, don't reapply. Just, Michael Jordan quit at the top of his game, gave me that speech.
Oh, the Michael Jordan.
Tried to talk me out of it for like 2 weeks. He did. He gave me the Michael Jordan speech. Michael Jordan quit at the top of his game. So you just need to quit. You're at the top of your game.
Yeah. Okay. So
do you want an awesome community of women around you, supporting your dreams, cheering you on, and having meaningful conversations? How would that feel to be surrounded by like-minded spiritual women who want to make a difference in the world just like you? What are you waiting for? Sister, sometimes you have to take things into your own hands and make it happen. If you are that type of woman, then becoming a women's circle leader is for you. It's one of the most fulfilling things you can do right now. I'm hosting a one-day virtual training to help women like you rise into your leadership and step into leading women's circles as a way of creating the community of your dreams. This is an interactive and experiential event with 5 parts. First, you'll learn the 9 pillars of the How to Lead Circle blueprint, a step-by-step process to start your first circle and consistently run monthly circles. Next, you're going to sit in a breakout circle so you can experience how we do circle at Sistership Circle. You'll make new sister connections as you share with potent question prompts and get vulnerable together. Then you're going to discover your divine feminine leadership archetype and how to cultivate your superpowers so you lead from your unique strengths. Next, you'll learn exactly how to start your first circle in less than 90 days. And finally, you'll know how to overcome any challenges that arise, and specifically the top 4 fears that come up for every circle leader, so you feel empowered to take inspired imperfect action. So if you're ready to create a transformational women's circle that develops real, meaningful sisterhood, and get the tips, tools, and techniques to create a circle that's safe, sacred, and sold out, then join us for this experiential and embodied event. Go ahead and click the link to grab your ticket today.
Now we can piece all these together. So before we do this, what are some of the themes that we can see emerging from this story? The golden nuggets from the story, all these pieces that we brought out. So I'll start with one, and that is, you said, around your identity. Identity feels like a really big theme here, and I am not my illness.
Yes.
So understanding, navigating identities and the identity crisis. Yeah. Okay, great. What other themes, lessons do you feel with the story?
The biggest is learning perspective in order to get through just every day, like life in general, because you've got to get that down in order to appreciate. You got to look at the positives. You've got to be able to look at things and just, make that list, be thankful. I mean, I'm thankful for this, because if you don't, you can easily get into a depressive state.
Yes, I love that. What can we say is the lesson around your kids?
With my kids, I tell you what, just, a lot of times we look around, we're like, I need to feel, especially with women, we're like, oh, I need something in my life. I need to feel like appreciated. I need to have like a job. I need to have a career. I need to do something. And we don't realize that we have something so special right at home. Whew, and I can feel it right here in my heart now. But it's, our kids. But we don't feel like, I guess, that appreciation, or that we're just looking for something to feel. And we don't realize we just need to look around. And our lives are so filled with everything, and it's right here in front of us. And that includes our children, which is our biggest treasure. And if we dump into that treasure, which is our children, they're going to later in life be our biggest supporters and our biggest protectors and our biggest best friends, I'm going to tell you. And so just dump into them, because that's going to be the best thing you could ever do.
Okay, great. This is perfect. So I put, we as women have something so special at home. And I would even add in, being a mom is enough. Because there's a lot of stigma, right? Number 2 is being present with everything right in front of you.
Yep.
And the third thing you said is, when we take care of our children, they become our best friends, supporters, and caregivers when they grow up. Yeah. When we're growing old and they grow up. Yeah. Great. So one of the things, so we now have these, with media, we call these sound bites. A sound bite is that little jingle, that little phrase, that catchphrase that people can remember. They're mic drops, right? So we have 5 of them now. I am not my illness. You got to learn perspective. We as women have something so special at home, and we have to really understand that being a mom is enough. And can you learn how to become present with everything right in front of you? And there could even be something around like, our children are our greatest treasure. And the more that we're present with them, like it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Or it's going to give back to you. It's a gift that's going to give back to you. Something around that, right? So one of the things that to make your interview really potent, but also memorable, is these sound bites. And these can be essentially these talking points and the way where you can let the words literally drop in the space and people are like, wow, like the point is made, And so as we're sharing the story, it's not about you, it's about your audience. And when you can weave in these lessons, when you're sharing the story, that's when they're not only going to feel connected to you and your heart and wow, like just feeling like that heart expansion, just so in love with Christie, but also like, wow, there's something here for me. I'm inspired and I either want to take action in some way in my life, or I might even feel called to work with Christie, right? And so that's what I'm already feeling just in feeling your energy as you've been sharing so vulnerably, but these really potent lessons that you've learned through your journey. So how we can put this all together is, I would say the starting point here is the Shamanic Academy. And sharing how perhaps, so we want to have some kind of transition around, everything really came alive and I had my awakening in the Shamanic Academy with Rose Cole. And maybe you give a tiny little background of what that is, so you create some context for people. And, it's a year-long program and I felt called and, just kind of what brought you there. And then this defining moment of I'm in study group and I was working on one of the other people in the group, and the energy, I could literally feel it coming out of me. It was the first time I really connected with that energy that I had been cultivating in the program. And I felt all of my gifts come online. I felt all of, wow, yes, this is me. And I realized in that moment that I was no longer my illness. I really got to see that I had been identifying as this illness, but really it had happened for me. And now I could see that it happened for me so that I can help others, right? So we can make that connection there. And then we could go back and we can share the story around being a nurse practitioner, right? So it's like you're kind of seeding the illness. And then it's like, so before that, I was a nurse practitioner and I was a nurse manager and I was a workaholic, right? And I worked way too much to the point where I was starting to get sick. But I was completely, I wasn't acknowledging it. I didn't want to admit that I was sick because I had worked so hard for my license. And I was, all the things that you said before of I aced the test and, it was the first one done and all these things, right? And there was so much pride in that. But then as I was visiting one of my patients and going to her home, I almost blacked out. And it was the first time that someone noticed that something was going on with me. And she got really concerned. And I realized that there was no more covering this up, right? And then my husband said to me when I had to reapply for my license or for my position, you can't do this, right? And gave me this speech and told me about Michael Jordan, right? And it was devastating. So that's the piece, the devastation, having the audience really feel the devastation of this point where you had to let go of this other part of your identity, right? There might be something here around weaving in like identity crisis, because there's the identity before that we shared around the sickness, and then the identity of being the nurse. And then we bring in the story about the kids. And that, for the first time, I was able, now that I wasn't working, I could actually be present with my kids. And I started to become the mom for all my kids' friends. And you could share a little bit about that, right? And I realized that, I had been neglecting them, however you want to say it, because I had been a workaholic. And so my identity as nurse was actually like affecting my ability to be the mother that I wanted to be. But I had a chance. I had an opportunity to change that. And now we can fast forward into the future of my kids are, my best friends now. And that we could put in that soundbite around like the gift that keeps giving, and, the fact that I was able to be present with them. I started to cultivate that. And then that lesson of like, when we actually pay attention to our kids, like they're going to become our best friends, our caretakers, our providers when we're older. And I'm starting to reap the benefits of that presence that I gave them, So you see the arc here and how we kind of wove the whole thing together.
Yes.
How does that feel?
That feels great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we got the story. We've got the lessons. And now it's like we can be moving into the teaching. And so the teaching part is, what is the thing that if we're speaking to people with chronic illness, what are the things that you really want to leave them with?
I want them to know how to have the tools, how to be equipped.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that. What would be if we could just name 3 of the tools, what would they be?
Number 1 would be knowing your identity. So that would be number 1. And that is you're not defined by your illness. So, because statistics show that women have a harder time getting diagnosed than men. And then probably once they get it, they probably cling to that. I mean, it's just, you're not defined by that. You don't even need that. You just need to focus on doing the things you need to do to feel your best.
Okay, wait. So let me clarify this. So women have a harder time getting diagnosed than men because of what you were sharing earlier for yourself of not wanting to admit it.
And it's I'm trying to think of what hospital. There was I'll have to look it up. There was a hospital that did a survey. They did on all the hospitals. I was reading on it, and the statistics were like 50-some% women over men have a harder time getting diagnosed. And not only that, they have more increased pain than men. And we need to do better in healthcare, in the healthcare system.
Great. So what I'm really hearing is the teaching here is, number 1, the statistics show that women have a harder time than men getting diagnosed and have more increased pain than men. Okay, so if you are not feeling well, number 1, you want to go get diagnosed. And here's why. You are not defined by that diagnosis. but the
Yeah.
diagnosis can help you to come face to face with this reality and make the changes. So
Yeah,
it's
once they get it, yeah, it can
yeah.
help you. They spend so much time though, like years trying to find it. And your focus becomes, my point is, your focus becomes so much on that because of so many years, is my point. You spend so long trying to get that. And I know that because it took me years to get mine. And so it's stressful. And then you spend so many years, like, just your focus, it's all you think about. But my point is you need to get away from that mentality of that's all you think about.
Okay, so
And
number
I had to
one
get to the
is,
point, well, I could get hit and killed by a car, so I'm not going to focus and think about dying all the time.
okay, I think that's a really important piece for you to put in. So this first lesson or the first teaching is you are not defined by your diagnosis. Don't focus on it 100%. It's great to know it, but if you start getting in the mentality of focusing on that,
you got to know, you got to be diagnosed, but don't be like so consumed by it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's good to know, and it's good to, you got to focus, take care of yourself. But here's the point. Like if I work with you, you're going to exercise. A lot of people don't want to do these things that are important. When you're taking care of yourself, you got to do with all three to keep yourself in balance. And that's the spiritual, physical, and it would be also like mental as well, because you got to take care of the emotional side, because we're all three components. So you got to look at it from all to keep them in balance. If one's off, it's going to set off all sides. So you got to take care of all, because you are all, you're not just one. Western will just take care of the physical. So you really got to look at all three.
This is a great point. Western will just look at the body. Okay, so we don't need to go, like in the interview, we don't need to go into the details of all the little nuances, but we do want to touch on each of these teachings. So what we can put this down to is our number one teaching is you're not your diagnosis. Number two is, while Western only looks at the body, true healing here happens on the spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional plane. Number three is there's a lot of alternatives for pain management. Because remember, we're kind of setting up this conversation with women have a harder time getting diagnosed and have more increased pain than men. That's the piece now that we're having you teach on. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, these three teaching points. And then I would bring in something around the quantum shamanic energy work that you do as your fourth point. That's really alternative to the system that you grew up in as a nurse, right? So what can you say here as the main teaching around why you've woven the Shamanic Academy work into your health plan for your clients?
Because a lot of times illness will first hit in your perispirit, and you have to clean that out.
What is that? It's the perisphere, you said?
Yeah, perispirit, which is what you may see as the outline of your aura, which is the outside lining of your body, auric field.
Okay.
Further.
Perfect. I think that's your fourth point here. I didn't know that, right? Like there's your teaching. That's the piece that you are, and you're an expert, number one, because you're a nurse. So you're an expert on the Western side, but you're also an expert on the Eastern side or the spiritual side, or however we want to label it. Simply with this first lesson here that you can be teaching people around clearing out the perisphere, which is the outer auric field. And that's where the illness can be caught first. And so the first thing that I do with my clients is clear that field out. The interviewer might ask you more questions about that, but that's really starting to give people a little taste of your work and a little bit of it's piquing curiosity. And that's the place that we want people to get to. Okay. So if there's, I think at this point, we may have taken up 30 to 45 minutes of you sharing the story, your 4 points. We might be able to bring in a 5th point if there's one more thing that you can teach. And then we want to wrap up with a call to action. Okay. So the call to action is, what do you want people to do when they're done listening? You want them to book a consult call with you?
Yeah, actually, I would. So I would like them to call me, book a consult.
What you want to do is at the end of the podcast, the interviewer will say, how can people get in touch with you? And so you want to do 2 things. You want to say, you can find me. Here's my website. But if you think that you might have a chronic illness, or you know that you have one, and you'd like to have a consult where we can look at what's happening for you, and what might be missing in your care on a spiritual, physical, mental, or emotional level, then book a call, and here's the link. So you want to have a link that you can give right there on the interview for people to, and then they could put it into their show notes as well. But an easy link that you're going to remember, that you say, go to quantumhealingwellness.com/consult. Boom. They go in there, they can book their consult with you. Okay.
Okay.
Wow, Christie, how does this feel?
Actually, this felt really good. This helped me a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, and now I'm all like intrigued, and that's the thing is, it's like, how can you, I want you to be thinking about, how can I pique curiosity, right? Like, how can I establish myself as the authority that I am, with how many years of nurse expertise here? How many years were you a nurse?
Oh my gosh. That was 2007. So yeah, I'd have to add that up.
Okay. So a long time. That's something for you need to bookmark that. How many years experience do you have as a nurse practitioner and manager? And so how can you really establish that authority? Those statistics, I want you, this is your homework. You want to write down those statistics. So you can actually state those statistics of women have a harder time by 50%, whatever the number is, of getting diagnosed and increased pain, right? Because that is setting you up as the authority, both from the Western and spiritual perspectives. And then boom, 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 you're going through your points. You're really bringing that curiosity around the perisphere. People are like, yeah, if they're resonated with your story, they're going to feel that call and that impulse to click the link or go find you. Yeah, girl, go get it. Any questions before we close?
I can't think of anything yet. I just feel like I'm so full of like all this information right now. So I'm going to try to remember everything.
You don't need to remember it because we got it all recorded as this podcast. I've got notes for you that I'll send over. And and then the last thing that I want to bring to you and to everyone else. Okay, so one thing that you want to put together is a one sheet. Okay. Your one sheet is going to have a paragraph as your on-air bio. Here I've got my books on here, but this is where you can have your certifications, like anything that's going to give you credibility. So this is where you can have, you know, how many years you were a nurse, you know, whatever certifications you have. I have a quote here. So for us to become true leaders, we must embrace our sisters as our allies and give one another permission to shine. And then some of these speaking topics or these bullet points that you can talk on. So managing chronic pain, navigating the identity crisis. Like you want to come up with some catchy titles based on some of these points that we made from your story, right? And then get in touch at the bottom with your email, your website, and your phone number. And this is what you would send out when you're trying to book on a podcast. And that way people can know who you are, what you're offering. And then the next piece would be some interview questions based on what we just came up with. Awesome. So Christie, thank you for being brave today. And I want to ask you a final question before we leave. What does it mean to be a brave woman in the world?
I think it means being able to just step out and be your authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for stepping into your authentic self and following your path, listening to the guidance and now serving all the women that you serve. Thank you for doing your work in the world.
You just listened to this show. I'd love for you to leave the Brave Woman podcast an honest review. Reviews help podcasts like this one grow, making it more possible for me to devote my time, energy, and money to its production. If you take a screenshot of your review and email it to support@sistershipcircle.com, we'll send you one of our archetype activations as a thank you gift. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.